talk about today. But for now, I'll just go straight into, the session for the day. So here's how things are going to go. Usually we'd have webinars with our speakers who are going to, converse over a topic and then have questions at the end of the webinar. But this webinar has to be a little different because we want you to be a part of this conversation. So midway into the conversations, we will open this up for questions. If when during the conversations between the speakers, you have any question, please feel free to drop it in the comment section or in the chat box, and we will take it as we go. The main goal of this webinar is to ensure that we provide practical insights for you, for your company, for your businesses, and for whatever stage that you are in when you're thinking about adopting AI to your processes. So I hope that this webinar would be as insightful for you. We've taken a bit of time to put it together. We have super amazing speakers, today, and I will let them introduce themselves because I don't want to take out certain bits and pieces of their introduction that I think would be very interesting to you. And I feel like it'll get you to understand them on a more personal level. So I'll just leave the introduction to them. But before we start, just a run through. First, we're going to have a brief presentation by one of our speakers. It's not going to be long, I promise. It's quite short and it's very insightful. But after that presentation, we will then move into the conversation proper. So welcome, everybody. Thank you so much, all 31 of you, for joining in on time. You are the reason why we will be great in life. Hallelujah. Okay, everyone. Without further ado, I'd like to first of all introduce you to TEM Nigeria. TEM Nigeria is a human capacity development and training company. We specialize in equipping people and organizations with the skills needed to thrive in the future of work and business. We're very, very passionate about building soft skills in people because we feel like this is one of the core parts of employee and organizational success. So we're very passionate about building soft skills in your teams and organizations. TEM Nigeria is headed by the amazing Mrs. Modupe Adedipo. Unfortunately, she won't be here to give us a lovely welcome speech like she used to. She's on the call, but she's not able to deliver her lovely speech to make you feel more welcome. But yeah, I hope that my face is nice enough for all of you. And yeah, this is TEM Nigeria, and I hope that you have a great session today. So let's go into the webinar straight up. Our first speaker is the CEO and co-founder at Nebuli. And he'd usually tell you that he wants to tell you the good, the bad, and the ugly side of AI. And for someone who's very well versed in AI and tries to tell you that, hey, you might not need AI, it's quite a very interesting conversation to have. So I'm sure that you're in for a ride today. You're in for many aha moments, many light bulb moments. And I'm going to let him introduce himself properly after my ramble. And then we have our second amazing speaker who's an expert with 25 plus years of experience in the technology space, both in Nigeria and globally. So trust me, you are in for a ride today. Please welcome our speakers, Mr. El-Sheikh and Mr. Adedipo Olagbegi. Thank you so much, sirs. Welcome. Please, you can clap virtually. We have clapping emojis, so everyone clap, 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 clap.
All right. Claps in my heart. Thank you so much.
You see, yeah, we have people clapping, so thank you very much, everyone. Okay, so I think we will start with Mr. Dikbo. You introduce yourself, and after that, we'll go on to the introduction from Mr. Tim.
So Bibi, you've already done my introduction, so no need for me to go into too much detail. But like I said, that like Bibi mentioned, I'm an IT professional. I've been in the industry for about 25 plus years, and I have a lot of experience around digital transformation, which includes AI, as well as IT infrastructure, software development, and also run a portfolio company where I invest in early stage startups. So AI, amazing topic, and one of the things that I think when we had preparing for this session, I was one that actually insisted on the PowerPoint slide. So please blame it on me. The reason why I did it was because there's a lot of, not misconception, but there's a lot of confusion around AI sometimes. So people use different words interchangeably. So some people say AI, machine learning, Gen AI, large language model. So it can be a bit confusing. So the idea for the slide, which is going to be very quick, 5-minute, 10-minute slides, just sort of get us all on the same page. Sort of give you an overview of AI as from a historical perspective, as well as where we are right now. Just sort of like a helicopter view of the tech itself, to just to get us on the same page. And then obviously Tim, being the AI expert, will probably take it a bit further with conversations, and then hopefully we can also answer some of your questions. But the real focus of this is about you guys, so we really want your feedback. So please engage the Q&A chat sessions. Just let us know what you're thinking, what you want, and then what information that you think you need to get you to the next level. All right, so I'm just going to share my screen, I believe. Okay, maybe let me know if this is up.
Okay, we're good to go.
Ready to go, perfect. So like I said, it's going to be a very quick one. So just to kind of give you guys some timelines around AI. So for a lot of people that, AI is like really, really buzzy right now, and they feel that it's just new technology. AI has actually been around for a very, very long time. So you can see from some of the timeline here starts from 1950. That was before the PC. And, at this point, maybe there were only maybe like 5 or 6 computers in the entire world. So AI has always been an integral part of IT, of computing. And it's had very, like, it's one of those, if you believe in reincarnation, it's technology that keeps coming back in different form, every couple of years, every 5, 6, 7 years, but it's always been there. It's always been in the background, and it's always been working. So it's just showing a bit of timeline up until 2017, showing how different. Blue. I remember very well was Deep Blue, because I played chess, and when they built an AI that was able to beat Gary Kasparov, who was the chess grandmaster at the time. I was really impressed with that. And then just, to your humble Roomba and Siri as well. And I think I know Alexa and a lot of all these AIs that become family members to us now. So yeah, but just have in mind, like I said, it's been around for a long time. But what has happened in the last sort of 3 to 4 years is that the tech we've experienced a boom in IT infrastructure. There's been more compute power. Neural networks have really, really expanded, and obviously there's been more work around the AI chip. So. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so just to give you like a hierarchy level of what AI is. So AI obviously is about being able to program a computer to act like a human being, and that's really the basic thing, to just show some kind of intelligence. And I think with the Turing test, that's with Alan Turing that I showed you earlier, that the test was for the AI basically to just trick a human into thinking that it's human. So, and I think we passed the Turing tests already, way back, because of all the AI chatbots and even AI on Twitter and all this other AI things, even in the music industry. So after AI is machine learning. Machine learning is a subset of artificial intelligence. Deep learning is a subset of machine learning. And then Gen AI is a subset of deep learning and neural networks. And essentially, a lot of what you guys know about AI as AI now is more generative AI. That's with the chat GPTs, and then also the other either image or the GAN AI as well. So all the other generative AI. And why they call them generative AI is that without programming, they can create their own, or create information unsupervised. Without me going into detail, I think Tim will do a better job of clarifying that. But forget the technology, let's take it into the business. So what's happening with business? What's AI doing in business? And I'm going to focus specifically on generative AI, because machine learning is still there. It's still it's actually, in my opinion, maybe almost as widely deployed as as generative AI, but AI seems to have more mass appeal right now. And what we're seeing, and also for businesses trying to get into the AI game, the barrier to entry with Gen AI is a bit slightly lower than machine learning. And this also could depend on your use case specifically. I'm not saying it's always that case, but yeah, it is. So we're seeing a lot of chatbots. We're seeing AI being used in design and development. We're seeing AI in content creation. So a lot of the content you're seeing right in, online, a lot of it is being generated by AI. Data analytics, for sure, that's been going for a while. And then also risk mitigation, and as well e-commerce, healthcare, transport. Almost all businesses are using AI. And this slide just kind of giving you an idea of how they use it. Like in manufacturing, they're saying obviously 40% of their applications, a lot of the applications are having conversational AI. And we're seeing that around even pharmaceutical software development. Most people that write code now usually are using some sort of AI to support them with the code writing. Very few people are doing it the good old-fashioned way. We're seeing that even in marketing, entertainment, banking is cutting across all the sectors. There's no sector that's immune from artificial intelligence. So as a business, what should you be thinking? And this is, like I said, I'm about the business. I'm about how to make this AI work for you essentially as a business. And is having a winning strategy and actually having a deliberate strategy for AI. So don't let AI, don't underestimate the impact of the technology. So be proactive. Even if you're not ready for it, have a strategy that works for AI, that is leveraging AI, because essentially AI is, I think, one of the biggest for the fourth industrial generation, biggest technology that is going to really impact, if not more than what the internet has done to business, on that scale. So as a business owner, even as an individual, AI has to be you need to have some personal AI strategy. And that is my wrap. I hope I haven't bored you guys, but I'm hoping that after this, we're all on the same page.
Right.
Let me know if I like.
Thank you very much.
If I've misrepresented any of that information.
I'm sure that as we go into the discussions, we will simplify a lot of these terminologies, and we'll simplify a lot of these ideas so that people can get to understand it practically. So thank you very much, Mr. Dipo, for that very succinct presentation. I told you guys it wasn't going to be long, so you can count on our words here. So over to you, Mr. Tim.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think the last slide was kind of music to my ears, because AI strategy is the thing that as a business you need to prioritize over absolutely everything. To give you my background, I am sort of your typical tech entrepreneur, which I don't see it as a good thing. So I am one of the so-called first generation technology entrepreneurs of the London Silicon Roundabout. So that's like the Silicon Valley of London. So basically, it used to be just a small group of us in what was known at the time Google Campus. Now, it sounds fancy, Google Campus. It's like, yeah, no, it was a tiny little crappy little building in London, East London, one of the worst locations in London at the time. And it was just a few of us, myself, my company at the time, and a company you might have heard of called DeepMind, was a tiny startup then. So it was a tiny community of us, and we were basically the first tech startup that were trying to kind of bring London into the scene to be, if you like, the competitor of the Silicon Valley. And I personally used to believe, I did believe very strongly that London would have been the Silicon Valley of the world, until we had something interesting called Brexit that came in and destroyed all of that. But of course, we'll leave that for a different day. I don't want to get upset about that or upset everybody. But before that journey, my journey with technology, in fact, started back in the 80s when I was a small child. I learned how to code when I was about 10 years old because of my father, who was an engineer. And when I looked at Dipo's timeline, it kind of made me realize how old I am, because a lot of these things I used to play with when I was a kid. And my interest generally, and this is kind of what my entire career in the world of tech, AI, and business is really about that human-machine interaction. So for me, when I learned how to code, I was fascinated that the fact we've got this language that unifies our communication with machines. And because of that, I became very interested in robots and things like gaming. But amazingly, I discovered AI, if you like, the proper AI in 1998 when I was studying my biomedical science degree. For those who don't, you'll be surprised that, in fact, I'm not an engineer, I'm a scientist. But I discovered AI when I was doing biomedical science because we studied a field called bioinformatics, which is basically how you use AI models and data mining techniques to decode animal genomes. So for me, that was the big aha moment. I was like, whoa, so you can do these things beyond gaming. Gaming was the most cool thing for me. But then I thought, wow, you can actually decode animal genomes. Okay, I want more. So I quit biomedical science, I did computer science, and then I became an entrepreneur in 2002, literally just towards the end of the dot-com explosion. So that was the perfect timing, basically, to collect the, if you like, the dead bodies of other startups. And for me, I kind of started to realize, how can you apply AI in the real world? So there's a lot of hypothetical and hype. And I've seen all of the hypes of AI, like I said, since the 90s all the way until today. And there's a huge difference between what you see in the media. For example, AI can change the world. AI can make the world a better place. And I have to say, I'm guilty of that. I used to do that. But the reality is, when you deploy AI in the real world, it's actually, it's in some sense, it's underwhelming because it doesn't sound as sexy as the hype. But at the same time, when you realize what it can achieve into your company, for your business, it is truly phenomenal. It is unbelievable. And I think this is where that discrepancy between reality and hype tends to happen in business. And in fact, one of the reasons why I created Nebuli, which we launched in 2019, early 2019, because over the years, I've realized that there's a major problem in the world of AI and business. And it's not that the fact there isn't AI, but rather there's a serious misunderstanding of what AI can and cannot do. And most of the time, people think AI can do the things that it cannot actually do, without realizing what it can do and how it can transform their business. So we built Nebuli as a company that basically works on research and development for companies. So we actually build AI models for the big enterprises, but we also do a lot of advisory services, specifically, I mean, I'm sure we're going to be discussing this on ethical AI, responsible AI. And we advise the UK government's Office for AI. You may have heard about the regulatory framework that they were announcing, or they actually published a report earlier this month. So we were one of the companies that contributed to that. And now, you know, I don't know if I need to explain the reasons why I decided to think about the ethical side of things, because, like, again, I went through the usual journey as a tech entrepreneur. I pitched to investors and had all the VC and all that lovely hype. But then I realized that there's a major problem, another problem, in fact, where people, certainly in the enterprise market, specifically from the shareholder perspective, but also the data market, that there's a major, as I'll call it, disrespect of people's privacy. And that's actually a very big problem. And we are seeing the consequences of this problem with AI today. And as a business, in fact, you absolutely need to prioritize responsible AI models and data privacy, because let's say if you decide to take OpenAI as your partner, and OpenAI are not particularly honest with their privacy policies, and your customer realizes that, in fact, the AI that you've deployed is starting to glitch or starting to hallucinate or start to provide dangerous information, guess what? You can't go and blame OpenAI. Your customer will blame you. So responsible AI, it is literally your reputation. And that's one of the issues that we always like to emphasize for businesses. And again, I think we can discuss that in more detail. But basically, one of the key advantages I believe that Nebuli has over our counterparts is that we're probably the only company, or one of the very few companies, that made a decision that we're not going to bring any external investors or shareholders. We're employee owned, meaning that we're not desperate to sell you stuff. We're all self-financed, because when you have shareholders, they kind of try to push you to become part of the hype. So, I mean, I can tell you, I exited in 2022. So I'm basically have zero ties with investors, good relations, but no ties. But I can guarantee you, if I had any of my investors in Nebuli today, they would have absolutely forced us to be part of this arms race. And we do not want to be part of it, because the arms race, like I said, that's basically a world of its own, but it's not necessarily a world that is relevant to your company. It's two different things. So when they talk about, oh, we released OpenAI released a big language model that has how many trillions of parameters, then Anthropic comes out, well, ours is bigger. Somebody else says, oh, ours is bigger. But from a business perspective, it literally makes no difference. So it's all kind of like, like I said, it's an arms race, it's hype, but for you as a business owner, it's totally irrelevant. The question for you is, what can AI do for your company? Which model is the right model for your company? And you will never get an independent, an honest, if you like, brutally honest, independent advice in terms of what kind of model that would work best for you if you were to go to OpenAI. OpenAI will never tell you to use Google. They'll say to use GPT. And same thing with Google, same thing with other companies. Whereas what we would do is say, actually, no, we don't really care. We're not favoring anybody. If it's the right model for your company, we will choose that model for your company, and then you start working from that point. And I think that's really key important here.
That's very important, to be honest. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Tim. Thank you, Mr. Adedipo. So now that you have properly met our speakers for today, we will get right into the discussion. But before we start, I'd like to remind everyone on the call, this conversation needs you in it, because we need to understand what your pain points are and how we can provide solutions to those pain points. So please feel free to raise your hands in between the conversation if you have a question and you want to speak, or if you don't want to speak, please type your message or your question in the chat box, and we will definitely get to the question immediately. We're not waiting till the end to take questions. We're going to take questions as we go. So please feel free to drop your questions so that we can have a very fruitful conversation today. Thank you, everyone. All right, so over onto the discussion. So we've talked about, the different phases. You sort of touched on the different phases of the acceptance of AI. There are people who are pursuing. So Mr. Tim has talked about the arms race. People saying, I built a bigger one. Oh, I built a bigger one. Oh, mine is brighter. Oh, look, I made a shinier one. But as businesses, we've also heard that AI has the potential to transform businesses. Why is it important for companies to begin to consider implementing AI, and how can they go about it? So I don't know who wants to go first with answering that. Okay, so maybe Mr. Tim can go first, and then I'll hand over to Mr. Adedipo to then give us a Nigerianized perspective to it, if that works.
No, absolutely. I think the way our approach is a little bit different, because we always say that the last thing you need to think about when it comes to your AI planning is AI itself. Because the problem is that people think AI is a product. AI is not a product, it's a journey, right? So it's not like building an app or like building a website. It's something that you have to start planning, all the way, starting with your data strategy, like we talked about strategy earlier with Deepo. So it has to be your strategy starting from your data, your business model, the challenges that you're seeing. But also it has to be related to the people that you're trying to serve. Who are you serving? Would they be interested in AI? Or what about your employees? Are they interested in AI? I mean, I know quite a few companies that invested millions of pounds to deploy AI models, but then their employees refuse to use it. So there's a lot of things that you've got to, think about first. So when companies come to us and they say that they want AI, the first question we ask, what is the problem that you try to solve? And literally, it could be anything. It could be anything from human resources or the fact that their marketing campaign is not growing, etc. And I would say probably about 75% of the time, AI isn't the solution. But when you start your AI journey, you look at the strategy, take all these individual steps towards AI. Every step is transformational. I mean, I'll give one very quick example. We worked with this investment company in London. They were I can't obviously reveal details, but they are involved in commodities. And their business basically is to find business leads every week that basically generates them around £50,000 per lead. So on average, used to get about 4 to 5 a week. So they came to us and said, look, Tim and Nebuli, we spend way too much time searching for leads, and we want AI to do the searching for us. I said, okay, cool. That sounds great. Let's see what's the problem then. let's see your data. Where do you get your data from? I say, oh, we've got our own data with all of the leads. We just have to search through it. So we need AI to do that for us. All right. Now, there's a tiny problem, which they did not tell us until we started to look at the issue. Their database was something like, I can't remember, it was between 10 to 20,000 Excel sheets with 35 million records. We're like, whoa, okay, forget AI. This is a problem. You should not use Excel sheets. You need to convert that into a relational database. We explained to them what that means. Move it to the cloud, optimize it, because then AI can't work with several thousand sheets, right? So it took us around 6 months to basically do the data conversion and migrate it to the cloud, et cetera, et cetera. And we've added, I mean, I wouldn't say we added an AI, but we added like some automated search, tiny thing, no major AI thing. That first step transformed their business, because instead of just generating 5 leads a week, they started to generate over 200 a week just by changing their data strategy and their data model. No AI. So multiply 200 by 50,000 pounds a week. And I then asked them, do you guys think you need AI? They're like, no, right? But now they're thinking, okay, now that they've managed to deal with this massive growth, now they think, okay, well, how can we grow further? Can we turn the 200 leads into 2,000 leads? Now we can start looking at AI, because they've already optimized their data. They've got the foundation. Now is looking at how can we use AI to help them automate the process so that they can start generating 2,000, maybe even 20,000 leads a week. So, and I think it's a really good example of how you really need to start thinking about AI as a journey and look at individual problems that you have within the company. So it's much more complicated than simply downloading an AI app. I mean, this is what my counterparts would try and tell you. You can download this AI app, plug it into something, and kaboom, magic, you've got intelligence. No. That doesn't happen. That never happens. It's a journey.
Great. Now, speaking to wanting Mr. Dikpo to Nigerianize it, someone has actually asked the question that says, how can businesses leverage machine learning and for African or the Nigerian region? Because it seems that training a model of our own may require more resource than simply exploring existing machines that use AI. You're currently muted, sir.
Thank you, Bibi. That's a great question, and to the point. So, machine learning specifically in the Nigerian African context, back to what Tim has said, is that there has to be a deliberate sort of process to organize and gather data. So right now, even in the current a lot of the machine learning algorithms around the globe already capture data from Africa. So we're not, it's not like that data is not being captured. It is being captured either through your mobile phone usage or different applications that you downloaded, or even different Google Map. And I'll tell you, my first experience with ML was in Lagos when I don't know what I installed with Google at that time, and this was maybe 10 years ago. I installed something, and I just got a notification at that time. I think Google switched it off. And the notification was that I had a flight that evening, and the notification sent me so Google sent me an email that I needed to start heading to the airport because there was traffic between where I was going to the airport, and they know that, because so yeah, based on my current location, that if I wanted to make my flights, I did not tell Google I had a flight. I did not tell Google where my location was, but obviously they have that data from my email as well as from my geolocation. So there is, I just want to be clear that there is definitely ML being trained on data specifically in Africa. But to say that, can we get more data that is not for people that are not using smartphones, for instance? How can we get some of those data points that are a bit unstructured, or they're not necessarily available in the mainstream channel, then that is a good idea. I think anybody who's able to sort of champion that will be sitting on a lot of gold, because like I said, when you look at Africa, sometimes you see the data points, but you see that the data obviously does not match the population. So you see Nigeria has got a population of 200 million, but you have data on like 60 million. So there's definitely a big hole in the amount of data that we have, which, like I said, the between the banking infrastructure, telco infrastructure, that is gradually improving. But definitely, it is possible. And like Tim said, it's about getting the data into the right structure, and then also having the right use case for it. So ML is expensive. So if you want to say, if we decide that we want to run, who's going to pay for it? What is the eventual use of this data? So unless someone who's just trying to monetize on the back end, or they're just using it, but like I said, it's already happening for sure. But it's just us having a more deliberate sort of approach towards it. So I don't know. Yeah, Tim, you want to add something to that?
No, I think it's spot on. There's definitely a market right now. I mean, if we're going back to generative AI, there's a market for more localized generative AI, because one of the biggest problems, like you just mentioned, Deepo, as well, that AI is still very expensive. It's way too expensive. And I think the issue, I mean, I was born and raised in Africa before I moved to the UK many years ago. So I don't like the idea that we have powerful models like GPT or Claude or Gemini that are basically built in California, and effectively it's imposing the Californian, culture on us in Africa, or indeed in Asia or South America. And people don't like that. I personally don't like that. And there's definitely a movement now where you have localized LLMs, but also the beauty of localized LLMs, they tend to be a lot smaller because it's more relevant. So if you imagine if you've got a language model that is designed exclusively for the Nigerian population, it will be the most relevant. It was still quite rich, very, very rich, but it's relevant and it's much smaller. And it's something that makes it easier for the Nigerian, end user to adopt very easily. So the learning curves becomes much, or the barrier to entry becomes much lower. So these are a lot of the considerations. I mean, I mentioned earlier that one of the things that we look at with my company is the human side. These are the kind of questions that you have to ask as well. It's a very difficult question. Sometimes ethical questions, cultural questions, controversial questions. It's like, how do you ensure that you engage with the relevant user with your AI, looking at a lot of these deep questions, social questions. And definitely now we are seeing a rise of localized LLMs, which I think is fantastic, because I think the future would be like, let's say if we're talking about Africa. So imagine like if there's a Nigerian language model and it's a South African language model, but then the two language models can communicate with one another, right? That kind of creates an interesting opportunity. This is very far in the future, but it's already happening. I mean, the foundations are being built for sure.
And just to jump on that, Tim, and this is my perception that at least and I could be wrong here, but this is my perception that 90% of the sort of like the Gen AI, the large language models are in English. They're not necessarily, they don't have different. So it's not like it's a mixture of, so the AI doesn't understand English, French, Spanish, and all the languages. It's not multilingual that I know of at this point, So I think it's also, it's just, fair to say that a lot of the non-English data is missing in a lot of the large language models. I'm actually very critical of a lot of the even ChatGPT for. And to Tim's point, I feel that even when it writes a certain kind of way, you can tell that this writing is very Californian in its writing. Unless you specify a specific kind of tone of voice, say you want the report to be like in William Shakespeare wrote it or something. So, but if you're if it's just to generate the default, it's going to give you American flavor English, which in my opinion is not really great English, but it's so there's a lot of repetition. So sadly, even though AI is meant to be sort of anonymous or random, you can actually now tell to a point. I can tell almost, without even just say, oh, this was written with AI to some extent. If you give me something that, I can almost tell at some point and say that, and that is, but And I think what is important for a lot of people to look at AI is that right now, what we're seeing in terms of AI manifestation, in my opinion, for this, not the generative AI specifically, we are in the infant stage. So what you're seeing is just a baby crawling. That baby is going to start walking. The baby is only going to get better and stronger. It's going to get smarter. It's going to get a bit more. It will understand the emotions better. It's going to get a bit more human as we evolve, as it evolves. That's the trajectory. So it's going to become more human. It's going to get better at it. There's tons of people doing data annotation that are trying to help AI understand a bit better. Just helping it to learn. And and I think that's the really the beauty of AI is the learning, so that AI can learn stuff, and that ability of it to learn. So even if it's not good enough right now, it's going to just keep getting better. So for a business, my typical advice is that there are two types of business. You're either pre-AI or currently AI. So pre-AI means you're yet to deploy AI, meaning that you will deploy it. There's no sort of way around it. You have to. So it's better to be proactive. You won't have a choice. It's like saying you're running a business right now without internet access. You don't have, your business is not online. You have that business. That's how AI. That's really what the impact of AI is going to happen over the next.
Yeah. Okay. So I know you said that's the beauty of AI, but I'm going to bring us back a little to the conversations that were happening a few months ago. Started late last year about AI being associated with job displacement. And I know you've talked about how it could help with creating better marketing funnels and all of that. Job displacements. That's what many people are hearing. So how can organizations equip their workforce to be prepared for an AI-powered future, seen as, like Mr. Dipo said, you're either pre-AI or you are using AI, meaning we literally don't have a choice at this point. So how can we better prepare our teams, our organizations for this future?
Well, I think firstly, I'm fundamentally against the argument that AI can replace workers. It can't. It's not smart enough to do it. And I think the reality is, it's not the AI that replaces people. It's that people choose to replace people with AI. And I mean, I don't know if it's mentioned anywhere, but I actually started to host a new podcast called the AI Geeks podcast. You can check it, aigeeks.com. Cheap plug, sorry. But I actually, one of the reasons why I started to do this podcast, because I want to call out a lot of these arguments, and I bring in experts that basically, where we can debate these things. But the way I see it generally, and we've seen examples of that, the main reason people would choose AI over people is because it's cheaper, not because it's smarter. And we've seen companies like, I don't know if you've heard the shenanigans that happened in Hollywood, where they got excited, the senior executives, right? And in all of the major studio productions, they got excited with ChatGPT, and they were like, oh, we can replace all of our script writers. And there was a massive strike about that. Yeah. Now, thankfully, that one of the reasons why the strike was successful, because people managed to demonstrate to the executives that ChatGPT is nowhere near as good as a script writer. And I even see that a lot on LinkedIn, even as recently, I think as yesterday, somebody was talking about how AI is so creative. We don't need creativity anymore. And I'm thinking to myself, my guy, as humans, we were creative for several millennia, right? And I think we did pretty well without AI. So I think it's important to kind of, again, it's to stay away from the hype and get real. What AI can do, the way certainly we like to promote, is that it empowers your employees, right? So it can make your employee much more productive. And effectively, it's about how can you save time. I mean, I like to use an example, for example, with nurses. So for example, because as a biomedical scientist, I used to actually work in a hospital lab. And some of the nurses used to tell me that what they would love to have is for some kind of AI that can get rid of all of the admin paperwork that they hate, because that's not what they've qualified to do. They didn't do all of their degrees to do paperwork. So they want AI to do their paperwork so that they can do the work that they want to do, which is nursing and looking after their patients. So that's the kind of question you need to ask in a business, right? So one example, like one of the, I suppose, I mean, again, I can't reveal too much, But the complicated projects that we work with right now is the UK Sports Institute. So it's the institute behind the British Olympic team. So they do all of the science research, the data, and all of the stuff for the British Olympic team. So we deployed our chat, which is called Nano. So it's built on existing language models. And Deepo, just as a quick side, Deepo was talking about that there's work that how do you make AI emotional and stuff. We actually training Nano. That's the part of the research that we do, is how do we make AI empathetic and emotionally intelligent, which is quite fascinating and it's really interesting. So you can actually check that out if you want to play with it. It's free and everything. But anyway, so the idea behind the work that we're doing with the UK Sports Institute is to help their HR department, because the problem that HR has is that they've got thousands of employees and they all ask the same questions again and again and again. We know, what's the policy of travel? What's the policy of spending? And the HR people are absolutely pulling their hair out because of it. So they thought, well, can we actually make it easier for the employees to find this information so that we, the HR people, don't have to do it? So we can actually focus on improving the policies. So basically, Nano, our AI, was basically designed so that it can absorb all of their HR documents. I don't know how many thousands of them. And all of their employees can simply ask the quick question, look, I'm traveling tomorrow, right? I'm going to Paris for the Paris Olympics. What are the policies for spending? And Nano will then provide the information, boom, 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 and the reference to the document. And if you need any more information, then you can contact the HR department. So that kind of saved so much time for the HR people and the HR department. But also, because it has emotional intelligence, one of the things that the HR people, of course, are responsible for is the mental well-being of their employees. So sometimes employees are not comfortable talking to their HR about their mental health, right? It's too private, etc. Well, because Nano is designed for that as well, they can start that conversation with Nano, right? Nano, of course, then will say to them, okay, are you feeling better now? Yeah, thank you very much. Cool. But if the person says, actually, no, I still feel anxious. In that case, now I say, okay, you need to start talking to somebody, right? Do you have friends, family, or maybe you can take to our manager. Here's the contact details of our manager, etc. So it kind of creates an environment where the employees feel much more well looked after, even though the HR people are not doing much from that point of view. So it creates more efficiency. It saves time. Now, even though it doesn't necessarily translate to bigger sales, but what I like to describe, and this is actually the chart that is really, the matrix is really good for that. You need to think about the ripple effects, right? Going back to my journey analysis. So the ripple effect, for example, in this case with the HR, is that you have more productive HR that would create a better employment environment. As a result, you've got happier employees, which means that they're, more productive. What are the consequences of that? Well, more productive employees, could potentially generate better sales. Happier employees would promote your company as the best company to work for, right? So it has good PR effect, potential good sales effect. And imagine if you do that for your customers. Your customers become happier because you've got better customer service. So the customers will be like, oh, this company has got this AI that is amazing. Brilliant customer service. I'm recommending my friends to use that company. The ripple effect, right? So I think that's really important. I mean, and again, notice I haven't said anything about replacing people, because you don't need to replace anybody. It's about how do you empower your existing employees. Now, will the day come that we might end up replacing people eventually, because that's what technology does. But I think we need to kind of calm down about that. Again, this is part of the hype, right? I think we need to get real about it. The reality is AI is nowhere near smart enough to replace anybody, but it's absolutely smart and powerful to empower your existing employees and indeed your customers as well.
Makes so much sense. Thank you so much for that. And I know that the next question sort of feeds into a question that Mobola has dropped in the chat, speaking to fostering trust and overcoming resistance in AI adoption, right? So she says there's a lot of buzz around AI. However, I know that there's an increasing rate of fraud, well, in bracket expected, and inaccuracies with several AI tools. And for example, she read of a lawyer based in New York who advised his client on the basis of a research carried out on ChatGPT. of which its information was found to be false. And it just means that AI can't exactly be trusted for the big things, which is what AI is needed for. So she also wants you to advise on trusted AI tools.
So I'm not I'm not going to try to endorse an AI tool here.
Okay.
Well, that's a great question, though, and to the point I think I tried to make earlier. The reality is that AI is not perfect technology, and it's never going to get perfect. But it's going to get more. It's going to improve in terms of accuracy or in terms of confidence level. So there's a term called confidence level we use in ML a lot, and that's when we have the confidence level that 97%, 98% out of the time it will be correct, but there's always that 2% potential failure rate of what you want. But anyone that's used any of the LLMs, Chat GPT, Claude, or whatever, you quickly realize that some of the information sometimes is not correct, and to also understand that a lot of the data is pre-2021 if you're using GPT-3. For 4.4 for GPT-4 is a bit more current. But for the older versions of GPT, definitely is older information. So it's not even giving you, so there's a 4-year gap in that data that you have, essentially. So it's not, and then I think also the use case for AI as well is not meant to be a perfect tool. It's not designed. It's not supposed to be a perfect tool, but it's meant to help you to sort of to use it as a I call it scaffolding. You use it as a scaffold, so you take it and then it guides you towards what you need to also do, but you have to still do your last mile of research. And a very good point in case is that I think we've known that for about almost 20-30 years now. And most planes can be flown with AI, so you can actually get a plane to take off and land with AI. But most people are more, nobody's confident that if something happens in the air, or maybe a system
Have you seen the movie Manifest?
yeah, but I mean, I'm seeing in self-driving cars in Silicon Valley, and I'm amazed. I'm thinking, I know some countries that it's not even possible. So self-driving cars in Lagos, it cannot happen because there are too many. The algorithm is just too many unknowns. That algorithm will implode. But I could be wrong, but I mean, I'm seeing it and it's interesting. And some of the feedback I see when people that drive in self-driving cars, that the car drives like a human being. In terms, when you come to a complete stop sometimes and you're edging, just waiting for the light to change. Sometimes the car does that. So it simulates like it's a real human. And because what they've done for a lot of that, like that, it's an AI learns. So they just it's just learning different things. So it's not designed to be perfect. It's never going to be perfect. And in terms of trusted AI tools right now, unless even AI that is modeled on your own data, you need to check, because AI is data is garbage in, garbage out. Is eventually a computer. Is whatever you put into it, it's going to come out. It's not going to, and why the LLMs are a bit better is because they put in a lot of stuff. So even if you have an error, it drops to a really, really low percentage.
Right.
Let me just, I can send another question in there.
It's not a question, it's a comment. I want to touch on it as well. Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, could I add one quick point? Because obviously as we develop the AI models at our end as well, I mean, one of the things that we found, because this is the problem that you hear about called hallucinations. So basically it makes stuff up. And what we found that generally speaking, you will never be able to get rid of hallucinations. Like Deepo was saying, you will hear companies that will try and claim and say, oh, we created a model that is hallucination free. Lying. It's a lie. It's like saying that you'll buy a computer that never crashes or never gets hacked. That's just not going to happen. It always hallucinates. So the question has to be, well, how do you reduce the level of hallucination? And it has to be with the data again. So the more you focus it on your data that is relevant to you, the less it hallucinates. And the example I like to use, it's sort of kind of like a satire, as it were, because let's say if you're a law firm, you could use GPT, but you can also, because we don't work with OpenAI, we work with Microsoft. So Microsoft has its own version of GPT, whereby it's in a private server, and basically this is how we work with. and it allows us to, it gives a lot of control over how we want GPT to behave. So it's very easy for us to narrow down GPT's focus on a specific task. But generally speaking, I would say, like, if you are to use a generic chatbot and you're a law firm, it's not advisable for you to use a generic AI model that can with some, legal stuff, and at the same time can provide you with the best chicken noodle recipe. There's no relevance. You see what I'm saying? So the more relevance you add to the AI model, like I said, because it's garbage in, garbage out. So the less garbage that it has, the less hallucinations it will produce. So I think this is people starting to kind of realize that, because with ChatGPT being that it's so generic, you have to remember the training data is the internet.
Yeah.
So you decide. We all know the internet is not 100% clean. So therefore, what you see in GPT is definitely not 100% clean. So the question is how do you reduce the garbage, or try to put the garbage aside as much as possible and make it focus more on the data that is relevant to your company or whatever application you have, and you train it on that. In that case, you start reducing the hallucination quite a lot.
Perfect.
You're on mute, Bibi.
Thank you very much. So to the comment in the chat box, it says AI can never be perfect because its results or outputs are based off data sets which are fed by humans. If humans feed AI false or inaccurate data, it will spit out that same data as output. Thank you very much. Your name is not tagged, but you got the entire gist of what we're talking about here. So thank you. Thumbs up to you. And it makes it a little less technical for a couple of people who don't understand. I wanted to make a joke earlier. If you're like me, when they say LLM, it means large language models.
Sorry. Our bad.
When they say ML, it means machine learning, and then AI, artificial intelligence or augmented intelligence. So yeah. Thank you. Thank me for helping you out.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes.
So we have a question in the chat box that says, what frameworks or regulations are being developed or implemented to ensure that AI systems align with human values, specifically regarding AI governance?
That sounds like a team question, but I'm gonna try to I'll give my take on this because it's something I've been following very, very quickly. AI is moving at such a pace that I don't think governments can regulate it quickly enough. So we're back in the early days of the internet. So in the early days of the internet, it just recently that there's a bit more regulation. You couldn't regulate the internet. So if there's a company, and this is probably showing me that I'm almost this, if I'm not the same age as Tim, there's a company called Napster. And Napster just started streaming music on the internet, and it was making tons of money, and nobody knew because there's no law, there's no legislation against or regulation against what it could do or could not do, and that's where we are, I think, with AI. Although almost every country now has some sort of government body, but because the technology is evolving at a very rapid rate, it's hard to have governance that can evolve. The only thing they can do, I believe, is to give you a framework to say, okay, look, the same way Google have that do no evil mantra that you have, and I think that's just the best we can say. Okay, look, do no evil with this AI, please. That's the only thing. But in terms of going into the detail of how you use it, it's so difficult. It's so difficult to do. It's so difficult to regulate. It's so difficult to legislate. But I mean, if you have enough players in the room, as in the industry players, we have some of the government reps, and you have some of the big companies, and it's very, very difficult to get all those people to align on a single POV. But if you can get all of them to align on a POV, then you might have something. And then what works in the UK might be different from, look at what's happening with data. So data security in Europe is different from what you have in America. So if I'm going to store someone's data that it resides in the UK, I can't take that data. If I'm going to take it to America, I need to let them know, because America has the Patriot Act, and the Patriot Act that you can access any data as long as it's on US soil or a US server. So all those different, and I think AI is going to end up like that. So different countries, different areas will have different AI jurisdiction. But yeah, so Tim.
Right.
Yeah, well, but as I said earlier, we actually advised the UK government on the how they would regulate AI here. But to be honest with you, I mean, we saw this coming many years ago, because I was one of the very few people in the UK that was shouting and screaming at governments that we need to start regulating digital tech and AI specifically. I mean, I started doing this personally since maybe 2012, because at that time, that was way before Nebula, but at that time I actually I built a company where we used AI to fight misinformation, because the misinformation, I mean, I mentioned Brexit, right? The misinformation problem we had that led to Brexit, led to Trump and all of that stuff, we all saw that coming. And in fact, there was a very big sort of famous report that was produced actually by the World Economic Forum in 2011, where they warned that the biggest threat to society is deep fakes, misinformation generated by AI. And that was in 2012. So the warning signs were there. We were telling governments in the UK, and of course the EU reacted by saying, coming up with the GDPR, because they were more worried about data privacy, etc., which is very important. But we all said, if you allow AI to go on the web through social media, it's going to be a major mess. And look where we are. So the problem that I like Deepo, I actually don't have much confidence in regulation. There's definitely, I mean, you may have heard the European Union, they launched the big EU AI Act, which is kind of like the GDPR of AI. And it's not going to be active until I think next year, 2025. But I met the authors of this regulation, and they told me directly that, it's really good, but it's not enough. Why it's not enough? Because the politicians behind the scenes, they want to push it more, not because they feel, okay, there's some kind of urgency. The urgency has been here for the past 10 to 12 years, but they want to be seen as we are the first. We are the first that did it. It's great PR. We are the first that did it. Not America, not the UK. EU did it first. So they kind of, in their opinion, they rushed it. So even the authors of the EU AI Act don't feel that it's going to be powerful enough to regulate AI. And frankly, in the UK, I advise the UK government, not because I support the government personally, but my country needed my help, and I said, okay, fair enough. But to be honest with you, we have we have the elections tomorrow, so we'll see what happens. But the current government that we have is anti-regulation. So you would like, well, if you're an anti-regulation government, how would you ever regulate AI? And of course, if America elects Trump, he's anti-regulation. What regulation are they going to have about AI? So, so the regulation side of it, I'm afraid I'm one of the biggest skeptics, because I've been involved in it, not directly from the law side of it, but as an advisor. And yeah, it's a lot of talk, but not enough action, in my opinion. So I'm afraid things will get a lot worse when it comes to misinformation or anything like that, or sort of any harm that is driven by AI. I'm afraid it's going to get worse than better.
Right.
And just
sorry.
That's scary.
to what Tim said. So I mean, like I said, this is we're right now in the fourth industrial revolution, and so part of one of the technologies that's going to really play a big role is IoT. So IoT is Internet of Things. So there are going to be more devices. I'm not sure which year. I think by 2035. I'll confirm what year it was. But there'll be more devices connected to the internet than human beings very soon. So you have more computers on the internet than actual. So that obviously we already have a lot of smart TVs with the Netflix and the so Alexa. So even your home, your fridge, and all those devices are all on the internet these days. So what they're predicting, obviously, that we're going to have more devices apart from all the bots and the networking, and then they'll have a lot of AI agents on the internet as well. So yeah.
Well, there's an interesting statistic for you. I think it's from I think UNESCO, I can't remember, that there are more people that have access to smartphones than to clean water.
There you go.
There you go.
That's true.
Yep.
That's very true. That's very true.
Wow. Okay. Very true. Very sad.
Yeah.
But then I guess with conversations like this, we're hopeful that we're able to, like you said, do no evil, use it for better. Yeah. So I'm just going to continue with the questions in the chat box. Before I go back, I have just two questions on my end. So let's dig into the questions we have in the chats. So we have one that says, is there a difference between artificial intelligence and augmented intelligence? Are they the same thing? How would I know which is right for my business?
Yeah, that's for me, I suppose.
That sounds like a Tim question. Yeah.
Yeah, well, because we are, well, I think we are the first augmented intelligence company in the world. So, but actually, I'll give you a little bit of history, because augmented intelligence is something that emerged at the same time as artificial intelligence. So if you go back to the 50s, I think, maybe early 60s. So that was the time when Silicon Valley in America was emerging. And most of that innovation came from the US government, predominantly from the army, right? So AI, in terms of artificial intelligence, was specifically designed to build robots. So it's all about robotics. It's all about building smart machines for, the CIA and that sort of stuff, right? But there was another group that was led by a guy called Douglas Engelbart. So they were part of the Lincoln Research Institute, I think. For them, it was like, well, actually, if you're talking about intelligence, you have to talk about people. You can't just think about, well, machines and, okay, they are intelligent. Well, what does intelligence actually mean? So they decided to do a completely different approach, whereby instead of just relying on engineers and mathematicians, they brought in artists, psychologists, designers, scientists, which is basically what we do with my company. So that's the kind of people we have, right? So we're not just a bunch of engineers. Like, I'm not an engineer, I'm a scientist. But we've got data scientists, we've got mathematicians, etc. So their idea was that, well, how do we build what they described as human-machine symbiosis? And they're the ones that invented the monitor, right? Because in those days, computers were, those big, ugly machines, right? So they invented the monitor, they invented the graphical user interface, they invented the mouse, etc. There's a whole history about that. And in fact, Douglas Engelbart, he was actually the first, he's the one that created, or rather did what's known as the mother of all presentations. So you see how all of the tech entrepreneurs, right? I did that as well in London, where you start and you present and all of that stuff. Actually, nobody used to do that before. So Douglas Engelbart was the first person to ever do it. So effectively, everything that you see today in the digital revolution is all augmented intelligence, because it's all about, as I mentioned earlier, that it's about that human-machine interaction. What does that look like? So from our point of view, like I don't like to describe Nebuli as an AI company. We are an augmented intelligence company, meaning that when we look at, like, for example, why are we building Nano the way we're building it? Because we're not interested purely on the AI. We're interested in that interaction. How would an AI interact in a way that a human would like it to interact with? It needs to be emotionally connected. It needs to effectively be more human, as it were, right? Because it's not just about asking questions. It's a powerful technology, but this powerful technology could be used for something more positive than simply asking it questions. So you can, like I said, if you feel lonely, like loneliness is a big pandemic of loneliness, for example, right now, all over the world, especially in the West. And one of the things that we found is that when you try to, again, this is based on psychology, right? So we've got behavioral scientists that are working with us. So we found that if people generally don't like to talk to other people, or they feel uncomfortable. So if you've got a chatbot like Nano that allows you to have that barrier lowered a little bit, because it's not a human, it's not there to judge you, but it allows you to start to think about whatever issues you have in your mind, right? To start to articulate it. You feel comfortable talking about it. But then Nano will tell you that, hey, now, are you okay? Yes. Well, maybe you should start talking to a friend. Do you have a friend? Or do you have, a family member, right? Or if you don't have anybody, where are you based? Are you based in the UK? Well, you should talk to the Samaritans. Here's the phone number. Things like that. For us, this is human-machine symbiosis. It's basically about how can a human make the machine smarter, and the smarter machine makes the human smarter, and it becomes this endless cycle. Whereas AI, unfortunately, it's always been a very sort of top-down approach, right? Like it's about pushing it. And I tend to annoy my AI counterparts, because I've been saying this for years. Maybe until this day, AI has just been an accessory. The company that absolutely pioneered augmented intelligence is Apple. And I'll always argue to people, what made the iPhone so successful? Was it Siri? Nope. Siri came much later. What made iPhone so successful is that human interaction, that interface, right? That experience that makes you go, wow, right? The design, the beautiful graphics. These are the things that makes us humans excited. People aren't that excited about AI. In fact, there's one research that was published recently, found that the general population, they don't care about AI. They don't even know about ChatGPT. I think something like 30% of the British population did not even hear of ChatGPT. Nobody cares about AI, but people care about beautiful design, cool interactions, right? Interactions that make you think, interactions that make you feel something special. That's augmented intelligence. And it's a more, you can tell, like, I get really passionate about it because it really makes you ask the difficult questions about humanity. Because everybody, like, you see, like, somebody like the CEO of OpenAI talks about, oh, it can improve humanity, it can improve blah, blah, blah. And you ask them, well, how? How can you improve humanity? How do you improve the loneliness pandemic? How do you improve the mental health pandemic amongst the young people? And none of them answer this question because that's not what they're doing. They're just building the tech. So our job, or at least what we're trying to do at Nebula, is that we actually want to ask these questions, or we want to answer these questions. And these questions are actually very important in the world of business, because as a business, you have to connect with your customers in a way that kind of makes them happy, right? Same thing with your employees. How do you connect with your employees and make them happy? AI can do that, but it's not purely AI. It has to be augmented intelligence. You need to look at the human element, that human machine symbiosis. So that's really the key difference. It's basically, you have to involve there's actually a technical term called human in the loop. So basically, the difference between AI and augmented intelligence prioritizes people. AI prioritizes machine learning. So that's why if you go to our website, you'll see with the banner that we have, it's human machine intelligence, not just machine intelligence.
Right. That makes so much sense. Someone said, tech guys, you don't really know how to name stuff. So when you say human in the loop, sounds technical. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. But it's fine.
Well, it's an AI thing these days, apparently. So yeah.
You guys need to do better at naming things. But yeah, that's great. So we have another question that asks, in which industry has AI, machine learning, and the lot made the most advancements to date? And going forward, in which areas will they be the most useful? I think, Mr. Adedipo, this question should be for you, seeing as you did a bit of work on the slides talking about the timelines.
You're on mute?
I think you're muted, yeah.
Yes.
Got it. Okay, so I think it's a very interesting question. So in terms of AI specifically, sorry, can you just which are the questions? I was reading one question. Is it the one on the human voice? No.
No. This one's talking about it's asking in which industry AI, machine learning, and the lot have made the most advancements, and what areas they'll be most useful going forward.
Sorry, I must have missed that. So sorry, yeah. So based on the research at HIDA, where we're seeing the most use of AI, and I'll try and separate it. So with machine learning, obviously, is in data analytics. So we're seeing with more of data analytics, where you're using companies that have really large data sets. They're using machine learning to sort of identify trends and or patterns within their data as well. But with Gen AI, we're seeing that a lot with customer service. There's seen a lot of activity happening around also around customer interactions, essentially. So your chat bots and AI bots. So your first line of defense. So for because a lot of companies spend a lot of money on first line of defense of them, obviously getting or resolving customer issues. So yeah, so that was where we're seeing a lot of activity. We're also seeing a lot of it around content creation. So for a lot of the content, like I mentioned, that is being created for digital marketing campaign and all of that stuff, a lot of it is being pumped out through AI, specifically generative AI. And like I said, because that's why I tried to explain the difference so earlier on. So machine learning tends to be a bit more rigorous for larger companies, larger enterprises, and that also have their own huge data sets, so you're thinking the likes of like maybe a mobile network operator, like an MTN or Airtel or a bank that's got transactional information on their customers, of how you spend money, so those huge data points are very useful for ML. But for a lot of the day-to-day, what we're seeing more for the medium-sized, smaller companies is more around, usually customer service. Also, as well as also, apart from customer service marketing, also analyzing customer feedback, aggregating that into areas, just basic, anything that that is also that helps to reduce anything that seems to be manual, that seems to be menial. Sorry, that has a lot of repetitive task in it. Yeah, then you would see that happening. And even with robotics as well, in the warehouse area, we're seeing that as well, which is also AI. It's a version of AI where you have stacking Amazon. We've all seen those videos of how that works. So yeah.
I think Deepa demonstrated sort of the problem that we identified many years ago, because like when people, when you say the term AI, it had different meanings actually, right? So all of the examples that Deepa just said are absolutely perfect. That's 100%. But I would go back to the person who asked the question, what do you mean by AI here, right? Because literally you can have robotics, that's AI, analytics, that's AI, robotic process automation or RPA, that's AI, generative AI, that's AI, recommendation systems. So that's always the question you ask. What is it that you're trying to achieve? Again, that's the key question. It goes back to the key basics. So when you say, where did AI work? I would challenge the question, because the fact that it worked somewhere does not mean it will work for you. Like, let's say, for example, if you say, AI worked in manufacturing, but if you're not a manufacturing company, that's irrelevant, right? So what do you mean by AI? I think that's the problem that we see right now. It's becoming a bit of a meaningless term now. It's like saying the internet. What does that mean now? Are we talking about social media? Are we talking about web search? Even online dating? That kind of stuff. It could mean absolutely anything. And I think that's kind of highlighted the problem right now. It's you've got to ask first, what is it that you're trying to solve in the company? What issues do you feel that is stopping your company from scaling, right? Like if it's I use us as an example. Like, we are now a scaling company, so we try to scale our company. So the questions for us, for example, well, what is stopping us from scaling? And one area, I'll use that very quick example, is how we build Nano, the enterprise version, the knowledge base for customers. Typically, it would take us around 3 to 4 weeks. So for us, that's a problem. We thought, okay, well, how do we change that? So we had to develop and bring in AI models that would allow us to speed up this process. And right now, it takes us 3.5 minutes. You see the huge difference. So we've identified the problem, and because it depends on what it is they're trying to achieve. So as a company, we want to scale. So what is stopping us from scaling? Well, that's one problem that's stopping us from scaling. Okay, what can we do to change that? We found ways using AI to reduce that 4-week work into 3.5 minute work. That's it. That's one problem solved. What's next? So that's how you have to look at it, right? What's the outcome that you want to achieve? What's stopping you from achieving the outcome? Where could AI come in? And when I say AI, I would generally mean the journey. How does that? Where's the starting point of that AI journey? It could be your data, but if you have the data, you have everything. All you need is the AI model. Okay, that's great. But I would guarantee you that you don't have the right data for AI.
Okay, so I think the person who asked this question, Mr. Adeniji, wants to give more context to the conversation. So I would give him the floor to speak to this. You have the floor, sir.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, good. I actually agree with both.
Hello, we've lost you.
Yeah, he was
speakers concerning AI and its application. I'm just asking them in terms of case study, overall quality of life? Where is it, and also where is it being used ethically? So they talked about ethics, they talked about application. Where are you seeing like gains, whether they're marginal or they are considerable gains? That's the question. Maybe I didn't type it properly, but that's what I was asking. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that.
I'm afraid when it comes to ethically, practically none. That's another reason why I created my company, because I want to call this out. One of the things I'm very hopeful, I don't know if you've seen Apple's announcement recently in terms of how they're deploying AI. I would say, and I'm not suggesting Apple are the good guys, it's a huge corporation as well. But when you compare how they chose to deploy AI in the upcoming updates, and you compare that to Google, even Microsoft, this is how I would deploy AI. So everything is stayed on your device. It never leaves your device. Your data is locked, and they have zero interest in your data. Unfortunately, Google, they have a lot of interest in your data because they need to sell you ads. Same thing with Meta. Microsoft, it's kind of halfway, right? So I'm afraid, yeah, the ethics sides, like I said, one of the reasons why I created Nebuli, because I mean, a bit of background, when I started my career, I actually built an ad network back in 2004. It was the first ad network for science. It was predominantly for science. And basically, I worked with publishers. We had I think we had like 4 or 5 million users. In those days, that was big. That was so cool. But I cannot tell you the thing that, again, another aha moment in my life was that how people have zero care about your privacy. So I had publishers coming to us and say, hey, could we take some of your users so we can bump up our data? Right? Oh, we're happily going to give you our users to bump up. Literally, it was like free for all. Give me your data, I'll give you mine. It was like that. Even some of my investors in the past, and I'm not saying they're bad people, but it was just attitude. They said, oh, Tim, we've got all these users. We can sell them to data brokers. We can make a lot of money. So there's that general attitude that your data, your privacy doesn't matter. And I'm afraid that still exists today. So that's why I'm hopeful that Apple are kind of changing the game a little bit. And let's see if that goes. But yeah, so to answer your question, where is AI being applied ethically? Nowhere. Not enough. Certainly, well, I would say the way we do it for our customers, that's probably it is ethical. That we're probably the only ones, I think. I don't know. But certainly, generally it's not.
So Tim, here's how, here's where I might just disagree with you slightly. Not disagree, but I just have a slightly different opinion.
Yeah, let's go for it.
My opinion is that there's currently not enough. So you can't say I'm breaking the law if there's no law. So the legislation
exactly
on AI is still behind. There's just no. So we don't know what's right or what's wrong. So is it? Everybody uses ChatGPT and they say, "Wow, it's amazing," but that was trained on data. We don't know how much of that data was actually data that was publicly available or it was privately sourced. I've worked with clients as well who they wanted to start. ChatGPT can give you a private instance, but the clause is that you're going to provide your data into them. So they're scared that. So the client was worried that, well, if I give my data to ChatGPT, is it going to be just kept for my use, or is it going to be used for the entire transformer? So is it going to be used for the GPT entire audience? And we couldn't get a clear answer from ChatGPT if that was the case. And this is for Microsoft as well, as because a lot of those things are just built to just keep taking data points from wherever they can get them, and just using that to augment. And because that clients had really they couldn't go ahead with the project, because the other option was to build their own transformer or build their own machine learning, which would cost a lot of money. So and they were not ready to go down that route. So they had to sort of look for a different approach to it. But the issue for, like I said, twice, is that because there's no clear regulation right now, Yeah. So, but like I mentioned earlier on, guys, this is not going anywhere. You're either pre-AI or currently using AI, or let me use the 3 categories. You're pre-AI, you're currently using AI, you don't know, or that means your data is being used for AI, but you're not aware of it, or you are aware that you're using AI, because almost everything now is coming with AI. I was looking at, so the new WhatsApp update has this AI thing that keeps very scary looking thing, and I'm now thinking, wait, are you monitoring all my WhatsApp chats? Not that there's anything wrong with my WhatsApp.
Probably it's Meta. It's Meta.
But I'm just wondering, like, and so everything, almost every device right now has an AI component, and they're all training the data. What we're doing now, even with ChatGPT, is that we're training. So when you run a query on ChatGPT, it will give you a result, and it will ask you, it gives you that thumbs up or thumbs down. Is it good? Is it not good? So that process in itself, we're helping train the model. So it's keep going.
But that's why there's something Apple, you see, there's something that my company have been saying for years, is that, we don't need to wait for regulation to do it right. Let's just do it right now. And and again, one of the reasons why I'm hopeful about what Apple announced, because, Tim Cook, the CEO, during the event, he said, as Apple, we're just going to do it right. And I think that's the key. That's why, every time when we talk to companies, we advise companies, we always say, okay, let's just get it right from day one. Don't wait for regulation, right? Like I said, I don't think the regulation will come, or if it does come, it's not going to work, right? So let's just have that assumption. But just Dipo, you made one point. Actually, there is a way to have private GPT, but you have to do that on Microsoft rather than OpenAI. So a lot of companies that come to us, they actually come to us because they don't trust OpenAI for exactly the same reasons that you mentioned. But with Microsoft, because we've got a partnership with Microsoft, we have access to the infrastructure. So effectively, you build your private instance, your private server with your own private GPT, and that's not trained by OpenAI. That's Microsoft's version. And yeah, basically your conversations, your discussions stays within that server. It doesn't go anywhere near OpenAI. And I think Google, they said they want to do the same. IBM with Watson X, they're kind of doing the same as well. Well, actually, they are definitely doing the same. But Watson X is, between us, it's not the best yet. It's getting there. And Anthropic, they say they do the same. I don't know. I haven't heard anything negative, but I've never used them on that setting. But right now, I would say, if you like, the most trusted infrastructure is Microsoft's Azure GPT rather than OpenAI GPT. So there is a way to do it privately. You don't have to build your own model. Never build your own model, right?
Yeah, no, it's not worth it.
Never do that. No, it's way too expensive.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So we have a lot more questions, and thank you everyone for interacting and being engaging. This is really good. Because you've taken me away from my questions, which is thank you. Y'all are the best. So the question says, I appreciate the speaker's assurance that AI won't replace human jobs, but I'm concerned about the trend of AI companies replicating and using human voices without permission. As a voiceover artist, my voice is my intellectual property. How can I protect my voice and my livelihood from being misused by AI technologies?
Oh dear, yeah. There is no regulation. Again. I mean, can I make a point? Like, because one of the things, like, I still talk to VCs today. Like, I have a relationship, and I cannot tell you, a lot of them, they don't think that this is a problem that they need to worry about. And I think even one of the major VCs that was behind OpenAI went publicly. I can't remember when. I think when the first. I can't remember when, but there was the first scandal that was emerging that OpenAI was using copyrighted material. Was it the New York Times, I think, right? It was the New York Times found out that, it was basically regurgitating New York Times articles without their permission. And one famous VC, you know what he said publicly? He said, oh, if we worry about copyright, we're going to kill these companies. And I'm like, so what, are you saying it's okay to steal other people's work so that we can train AI? And that goes back to the point I made earlier, that they have this attitude that, you know what, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that it's your work. It doesn't matter that it's your voice. It doesn't matter that it's somebody else's work, because AI comes first, right? I think this is bad. This is bad reputation for AI. And this question is perfect. It's a brilliant question. I wish I can tell you that the companies care about your voice. They don't. They don't care about your voice. They don't care about your copyright. They don't care about anything. So the question is, what's the best way forward?
Someone says to patent your voice. So I would like Mr. Diko to come up with that.
So what's going to happen for sure? I believe that we're going to regulate to protect the creative industry.
Copyright.
Yeah,
I think that would probably is going to come, because I think there's a lot of like legal actions being taken, and I think
there was that song by Drake, that Heart of Sleeve, that came out was it last year, that had over 100 million streams, and the guy just took Drake, The Weeknd, and somebody else's voice.
It was a good song though.
It was a good song. And guess what? So what is, and this takes you back to AI's fundamental not use case, but the way it's structured. So what a lot of people think AI is that it's creative. So it appears to be creative, but what AI will do is that it's taking from what has already existed, what he has, the data points he has, to remix that into a new. So it's more. I'll say, apart from it's not really creating, but it's remixing. So it's taking something that already exists and then sort of just adding it together, but using existing framework, which is very scary. So the projection is that by, I think, 2025, it's going to happen before 2030 for sure, that a blockbuster movie on Hollywood will be written 80% by AI. That's the projection from beginning to 80%. And that's, so you would actually have an AI. So there's also possibility to have an AI rock band. There was a band in the what's that band in the 90s? Was it that was they were like cartoon characters, but they're not like real people essentially, but they had
the gorillas.
The gorillas, exactly. You got it. Gorillas. And I love the guy. They have some really good songs. You're gonna start getting virtual music artists. That's the future. You're gonna have people that. So I mean, if you can patent your voice, please do. I mean, there's I think Scarlett Johansson just, there was an issue she had. I can't remember what happened. Someone used her voice for something, and she sued them. But eventually it's going to get better. But to your point, if you can paint it in the country, yes. But just that it's hard to. If all the AI has to do is just drop a few octaves or just manipulate your voice a bit, and it will not sound identical to you, and you can't prove that. Because there are people that sound the way you do, in real life. So you might not be able to prove that is your voice. It just sounds like you, So that is also a gray area that people need to sort of monitor. But it is. The reality is that it's going to get worse. We're really going to start seeing AI. I mean, they're already AI girlfriends. You can actually, their websites, so I'm not going to share them publicly. Just so I don't give them free advertisement, but there are things where you can go when they give you an AI. You can get into a relationship with an AI bot right now that are available, and you're having a one-on-one conversation. And some people are finding it interesting. They're engaged in that process. That company is making a lot of money. They raised a lot of money, from their last seed round. So people are shoving money into it. So yeah. So my take is that it's going to get crazy before it gets a bit calm. So it's going to be like the 90s .com bomb. So that's what's going to happen. So a lot of all these AI ideas are going to be coming out. But that being said, there's still some very, very useful AI case studies, like in the travel industry. I think it's Expedia. They have this amazing AI so in products anyway, I'm seeing a lot of really, really smart uses of AI where they can actually help you plan your trip. So you can actually just put in like a prompt that says, "Oh, I have $1,000 in savings, and I want to go to either of these 4 or 5 countries," and it would go through all the packages and come up with the best deal or the best number. So yeah, recommendation engines. I think that's why I left that as well. So our AI is really great at recommendation engines, and that's what like Netflix uses as well. So when you see Netflix and they say, "Oh, we recommend for you," and certain kind of images, that's machine learning typically working in the background trying to give you that. So we're seeing those use cases. They're quite useful, and I think there's always, like, to any technology, there's going to be the negative and the positive side. Right now we're seeing a lot of the positivity, but then when the negatives start growing with this as well, and we're hoping that the legislation that we put in place would help reduce the impact, but there's always going to be definitely negative people using it.
I think you should watch because this is kind of the same sort of thing that happened with Scarlett Johansson recently, if you've seen in the news. I mean, I don't know if she's actually taking any legal action against OpenAI, but I think, keep an eye on that. I mean, obviously, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know if you can actually patent your voice.
She can't prove it, though. I don't know if you can prove it's a voice.
So long as you can prove it, yeah. So long as you can prove it, somehow. I mean, like, if there's a law, I mean, I think the biggest beneficiaries of that are the lawyers right now. I mean, they're having a heyday, big time. But the one thing, just to sort of to add to Deepo's point, because I did that on my YouTube AI Geeks channel, that I made the point that because I criticize the hype AI. And there's a huge difference between the hype AI, as I said earlier, and the real AI. The real AI is not going anywhere. The real AI has been around for 70 plus years, right? The hype is basically what people come up with, right? When they say, oh, with AI, you can do this, this, and this, and that. I mean, we actually reached the point. I actually think that we are reaching the end of the hype, and we're going to see an explosion sooner rather than later. And I'm made as I say this because I'm actually seeing audiences now, certainly in the UK, they laugh when they hear people talk about AI. So it's being ridiculed, right? Now, this is bad, generally, because obviously it destroys the reputation of genuine AI experts like myself and Deepo, right? But at the same time, and I've seen this in the .com era, that when people start ridiculing the technology, or rather the hype, they start ridiculing the entire technology. So they start dismissing it. They say, oh man, this is all complete nonsense. Forget it, right? I mean, even now, when you hear people say things like, oh, this is AI generated, that's not a compliment. That's usually a bad thing, right? So now AI is being linked with bad and negative stuff. And that's not a good thing. But so again, I urge, like, obviously we're all business people here, do not dismiss the technology, right? That's why I say, ignore the hype. Yes, you can listen, you can laugh at it, whatever, but the technology is 100% here to stay. The way I say it, like, generative AI, the value of ChatGPT isn't the AI. ChatGPT is the app. The AI is the GPT engine underneath it. This engine can be applied in so many different things. So what generative AI has changed, going back to my augmented intelligence interest, right? It's how we interact with machines. So now we're actually moving into a new era where we have more of a conversational user interface now, rather than just a graphical user interface, which is what we've had for the past, 30, 40 years now. So we're entering an era of conversational user interface because of the large language models. This is absolutely going to stay. That's not going anywhere. So even if OpenAI dies, which I think it might, but GPT and LLMs, or the generative AI, that's not dying at all. It's going to actually evolve. So don't dismiss the technology, dismiss the hype, but not the tech.
100%.
Right. Okay. So we're quick running out of time, but we have more questions. There's a question here about someone who runs a solar company with investors who ask why the audit and design processes are not managed AI.
Sorry, you broke up at my end. I didn't hear the question.
Yeah.
Okay, so the question says, I run a solar company and investors recently asked why more of our audit and design processes aren't managed by AI to make us more cost efficient. It's interesting because they're essentially asking why I won't cut jobs by adopting AI. How can we use AI in a truly value building way that upskills our teams rather than replaces the lowest skilled ones? I think I'd like Mr. Adedipo to take this one. And then the next question that we would take before we go off, or before we round up, would be to Mr. Tim, that asks, what are the potential implications of using AI-generated content, such as deepfakes, in social impact initiatives? And are you able to share your views on some innovative ways technology and AI can be used to address challenges around climate change and sustainability? I think once we address those two questions, we can then wrap up and come to us for the night. So, before you go first.
Yeah, so I think Tim spoke to this earlier on, but I'll just try and reiterate that, AI, for where it is right now, cannot replace the functions of a human being. But I mean, let's even just assume that it's even possible to replace the person that, there's no guarantee, particularly in the context of Nigeria, where infrastructure cost the cost of running the AI might be actually be more expensive. There's no guarantee that using AI to automate these processes for audits and design processes will definitely improve that hasn't been validated, will improve the profitability of the business. But to the point though, and that's why I said earlier on that every business should have an AI strategy in place. Whether you are currently using AI or you would eventually use it, you should have a strategy in place that looks at where within your business you feel AI can actually provide you with some cost savings and optimally, help improve your operational efficiency as well as profitability. But and to I mean, my gut feeling is that ultimately there will definitely be job losses as a result of AI, but not job losses from a perspective of AI replacing the person, but retraining the person into a different role that involves him working with AI, essentially, like how typewriters no longer exist, and they've used and back then we used to have those typing pools with secretaries, and that moved to obviously having them on their computers. But ultimately, it was just a change of tools. You still have people that work on that, and I mean, maybe they're not too many secretaries anymore, but they've retrained over the years. So secretaries have become admin, or they move to HR, or they move somewhere else. So there's always, so as much as AI will take some jobs, AI will take some jobs, it's going to create some additional jobs as well. It's going to create a lot of jobs right now. I mean, one useful hint, anyone looking for a temporary job, you can become a data annotation person. They're paying them, ridiculous amounts of money for just, reading documents and just. So there's a lot of jobs that will be created as a result of AI. So my advice to this person as a business is definitely come up with a strategy for your business. One of the things that I believe I discussed with Aki and the team as well, that between Tim and myself, we're happy to have a mini consultation with you for 50-30 minutes. We'll just help you look at what are the options for AI for your business. I will give you a very unbiased, unparalleled, unbiased view of what we think, free of charge. You don't have to pay us, only if you see me, buy me a coffee sometime. If Tim would need maybe sushi or caviar, I'm low, but
no, not that push.
So please, so we're happy to jump on the 30-minute call, and that just goes not just to him, to anybody else on the call. We'll just have a chat with you about where you are. If you're a serious business looking at AI, we're happy to give you that consultation. I guess Bibi will probably send out a mail to that effect later on, but we're happy to sit down with you and discuss any ideas that you have with engaging AI, and hopefully between the two of us and you as well, we should be able to come up with a very good strategy or roadmap for your business regarding AI.
Yeah, speaking to that, I've just dropped
as well.
Okay.
So can I just add one tiny
quick?
Yes. I mean, we actually have like a very quick, simple, like a 3-minute tool, like a small survey that actually gives you a guide in terms of what you need to think about if you want to deploy AI. So it asks you a few questions, but it actually provides you with a report. We're actually using AI for that. So it's free. So I mean, Bibi could probably send a link. You should be able to find it on our website. But basically, it's a free AI assessment tool. So it basically goes through the key pillars that you need to think about. And it asks you a simple question. Did you think about this? Did you think about that? Do you have this? Do you have that? And then it just sends you an email with a PDF report, and it just explains pretty much everything that Deepo and I just talked about, kind of summary in terms of what it is that you need to think about. And it's free, no obligation. Just use it if you want, right? I mean, Bibi can send this in the email or something.
Yeah, via an email. And I've just put a feedback form in the chat box. So if you'd like to hop on this offer of a free 30-minute consultation, please fill that feedback form, and then we would sort out the calendars or the schedule for this consultation from your information on there. And obviously we'll send this via email as well, in case anybody misses it in the chat box. So we'll just go to our last question, which was directed at Tim. Well, I directed it at Tim. What are the potential implications of using AI-generated content, such as deepfakes, in social impact initiatives? And are you able to share your view on some innovative ways technology and AI can be used to address challenges around climate change and sustainability?
So that's two questions. I mean, well, the first one is basically what I did for 10 years before I created Nebuli. But to answer the question, I mean, can deepfake have an impact on society? Well, Brexit. Trump. That's what you get with the misinformation. So, and the strategy we used to basically, one strategy, and we even tried to do that during the pandemic, because obviously there's a big problem of the anti-vaxxer movement. So it's really to have what in the world of AI we describe as the source of truth. So basically the data that you can rely on, and you know that this is factually correct. So if there's a way to find some kind of like a scoring mechanism, like what we did with my previous company, like we used like a scoring mechanism. So the more closer it is to the actual fact, to the source of truth, the more likely it is a accurate information, right? Now again, it's all obviously quite experimental, but it kind of goes to the heart of the problem that I mentioned earlier, that, you know, if you want your AI to hallucinate less, you've got to have a source of data that is relevant to your company or whatever it is that you want to do. So same thing applies here. So does it have an impact? Oh, 100%. And my concern, because right now, you know, we have elections here. I'm not aware of any major misinformation campaign. I think people have become a bit more careful. But of course, you know, the American elections are coming. There are more elections. Of course, there's one in France that is coming. I think 2024 has got the largest number of elections in history of humanity or something like that around the world. And what I'm worried about, that back in 2016, basically you needed companies like Nebuli or companies like Cambridge Analytica to be able to create misinformation campaigns and deep fakes, etc. My concern that now you don't need companies like us or Cambridge Analytica. Now anybody can do it. You can use ChatGPT to be very convincing, right? I can use ChatGPT to convince you that Brexit is the best idea in history, right? And it will do it convincingly. So now anybody can do that, and that's my concern. And of course, there's a tiny issue as well called Elon Musk owning Twitter, and that's a bigger problem. I mean, what's the solution? Regulation. All goes back to regulation. You know, like I said, the World Economic Forum warned governments around the world in 2011 that we need to control this thing, somehow regulate social media, to not allow people to simply, you know, publish whatever they feel like it. Now there's obviously the community checks, but that doesn't work. So yeah, I'm very cynical on that. I'm afraid that so the impact is that it's going to get worse.
So Tim, just to follow up, so what do you think has worked in the UK though? To the point about the UK, I've been a bit surprised that the UK hasn't experienced a lot of the it's fake news, deep fake, whatever you call it, fake tweets. Is it that it's minimal, or they've put someone in place to check it?
I think it's more like, I think people just fed up with the conservative government now. I think people just want a new government. So I think whatever misinformation, because the conservatives actually, because I mean, again, I'm not trying to be political, but you just, if you follow the money, right? If you see what happened in 2016, it really was linked with the conservative movement and the Brexit movement, right? So right now, the conservatives, I think the problem they don't have as much money as before, because now the Labour Party is getting all the money. People, the population, everybody's fed up. They just want Labour or somebody else. Nobody's voting conservative anymore. But they did try. They tried, although it wasn't through AI, but rather they were trying to do things like data grab. So, for example, a few MPs would go on Twitter and say, hey, we've got this local campaign to save a chip shop. Please give us your name to save that chip shop. But actually, it had nothing to do with the chip shop, right? It was basically they tried to grab your data and send misinformation. So they had a few tactics. But no, I think people have become, I don't think people just care. I don't know if there's less misinformation, but I think people just kind of made up their mind and say, you know what, we're not voting conservatives, we're voting whoever, and that's it. So I think that's why it didn't work. It would be interesting to see in America, though. I think America is going to be, it's going to be ugly.
You think so? Yeah, let's see then.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, thank you for that very interesting question, Mr. Dipo.
And there was a climate change as well.
Yeah, and then the question on climate change. We have to unfortunately bring this conversation to a close. This was very successful, in my opinion. Thank you to everyone who interacted with the speakers, asked questions, especially someone who's named Android something. You've been responding to people's queries as well. And yeah, thank you very much for engaging.
Use AI Android for the could be an AI bot.
I know.
I was just wondering that. I was like,
Well, yeah, thank you. This was really great. Mr. Adeniji says, well done, Tem. Well done, moderator, speakers, participants. I truly enjoyed this session. We also did. Thank you very much, sir. He says I'm not an AI. My name is Malam Hussein. Okay, thank you very much.
Hey, so with an AI answer that question, I don't think AI would answer that question. Yes.
no.
Right. Thank you very much, everyone. So please, if you are interested in the free consultation with our speakers, Mr. Tim and Mr. Adedipo, please fill the feedback form in the chat section quickly before we go off. But we will share this via email as well, so that you can have access to it. We hope you had a really great session today. We had a great session. I enjoyed this session very much. So please stay glued to Tem Nigeria across all social media platforms and across our websites, and please stick to our newsletters as well. We have a lot of good information coming your way. Thank you, everyone. Omi Bakes says, thanks, guys. Very informative. My final thank yous would go to the great speakers for tonight. This was really good. We're able to take out a chunk of the technical bits and make it very practical and relatable, and I really appreciate that. Thank you, everyone. We've come to the end of today's webinar. I hope you have a great evening. Good night.